So this morning, we're blessed by the presence of our 88-year-old young friend, Lewis Williams. Lewis grew up in St. Pete. His father owned a team in the Negro Baseball League. In 1938, at 3 months old, he was baptized in Trinity Presbyterian Church, and he's been part of that church family ever since. He went to Gibbs High School. He devoted his life to public service in the armed services, in the police department of St. Pete, as a teacher and as a postal worker. He has 2 daughters who went to USF, and 1 grandson, and 4 granddaughters. One of the granddaughters is graduating in April from FAMU in pre-med, which is beautiful. And another passion of Lewis, besides his family and his grandchildren and children, is sports. He avidly played sports in his youth and is now a devoted spectator of baseball, basketball, football. Did anyone say Pittsburgh Steelers? So, Mr. Williams came to Lakewood because he visits churches in the area to see what he can learn from them to bring back to his church. So he started visiting here every so often and checks up on what we're doing, and as well as other churches in the area, so he can help his home church, Trinity Church. So we can truly say that Lewis is the salt of the earth and a shining light. So I had a few questions I wanted to ask, and we'll see what other questions come up and what else evolves from our conversation. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, do you remember when you first became aware of racism?
I guess my first recollection, I was about 4 or 5, and my mother took me into Webb City, and I noticed that the fountains had white and colored, and she kind of started giving me a lesson from those days on.
Beautiful. How many of you remember Webb City? Okay. This was a big shopping complex near Central Plaza, basically. So another question I wanted to ask you about is, what were your thoughts about Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, and were you involved in any demonstrations or actions?
No, I believe that he was asking for, and he believed in, bringing races of people together. And I was in the military, and I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia during these years, 62 to 69. And we were put on alert because they'd had one incident, and they was wondering if they were gonna have to call the military out for the second go around.
So you served in the military. Were things any different in the military than they were in society at large in terms of racism?
Yes. I first joined the Army in 1955 at 17 years of age, and the military had just started integrating in 1948. And it was likened to the Brown versus the Board of Education decision, passed in 1954, but it wasn't fully implemented until around 1967. And that was basically the same thing with the military, because Truman did it in 48, but we didn't come around until about 1950. And during that time I was in, we wore the brown uniforms. Most young people now don't even know anything about the brown uniforms and brown shoes. And during the transgression, we ended up with green uniforms and black shoes. And the reason for that was soldiers would shine their shoes, and one would be mahogany, one would be brown, one would be light brown. We had 10, 11 different browns, and that was not the military. It had to be these same. I went to Jacksonville when we were first being inducted. Jacksonville was an induction center, and on the bus leaving St. Pete, all African Americans had to sit on the back, Caucasians sitting in front. We got to Jacksonville, and lo and behold, I'm 17 years old and green as a cucumber. They stopped in front of the Floridian Hotel. I was under the impression we were all going in the hotel. It didn't work out like that. The Caucasian soldiers went into the Floridian Hotel in Jacksonville, and they took us African Americans to a rooming house ran by a African American female, and that's where we stayed.
So can you tell us a little bit about your experience serving in the St. Petersburg Police Department?
I'm going to read a little of that. Yes, sir. After my first enlistment, I came out and was given a basketball scholarship to Gibbs Junior College. And I was really just more or less hooked on sports. School, probably the most thing in my mind. And I heard that the police department was hiring. So after the season was over, I went and applied for the job and was hired in 1959. One of the first 11 African Americans hired in St. Petersburg at a tender age of 21. And it was like being thrown in the jungle because I hadn't had that, what can I say? I hadn't had that tight interaction. I was basically all from African American side, you know? And this was a period of adjustment. But my mother, God bless her dead, she did a favor for me. I called my father a wimp, but my mother was strong. She was really strong. And she more or less had prepared me for what was coming. So after I was hired, I found out that this was one of the most stressful positions in the world, in that I could only arrest African Americans, but guess what? I could only live in the same neighborhood. And when you arrest Tom and you got to go back and live next to Tom, you catch a lot of flack. And I couldn't help it. So what I did eventually, I quit and returned to the military. In 1969, the police department was advertising again. This is 10 years later. And I applied. They got me out of service. Right over at MacDill on the station. They got me out of service 3 months early. I came back to the police department. And they hadn't changed, and I hadn't changed. So I didn't last too long. So after about a year this time, I said, well, I'm gonna try it. I just wanted to be a policeman. I really wanted to be a lawyer when I finished high school. But my mother and father had separated. My mother had to take care of the kids, and I knew I wasn't going. So what happened was, I said, I go to Tampa. Police was gonna be my thing. I went to Tampa, and by having the Hispanic population and all, I thought it would be a little more lenient. When I got over there, it was worse than St. Pete. I couldn't stay over there 6 months. So I gave that up. And during the process, I met my wife, Joyce. I have a picture of her and I back there on the table. And Joyce and I started kicking it around. And in 1975, I married Joyce. And from what another fellow that was in the same situation as I, interracial marriage, he said, Louis, you know, you're one of the top first five interracial marriages in St. Pete. Goodness knows. Next to my mother, this was the best thing that could ever happen to me. Because she made me go back to school. She made me get my degree. And she showed me directions. And I took her directions and went there. And I got my degree in health education. I wanted to be in physical education, but it was a 5-year waiting period at USF. So I said, I'm gonna take the shortcut. I got it in health. I went to FAMU and got certified in PE and driver's ed. Boom, I'm where I wanna be now. So I came back and I worked at Northeast High School. I worked at Gibbs for a year. Then I ended up at Northeast for 4 years. And I said, there's no pay here. There's no pay here. So I went back to the postal service. And I retired from the postal service after 31 years. But Joyce had told me, she says, retirement is not guaranteed. So every opportunity we get, we're gonna travel. Lo and behold, we made 49 states. We would drive or fly and rent a car and whatever. And she came down with cancer before we could make the 5th. So what I did, after she passed or whatever, I got on a plane and flew to Portland, Oregon. That was my last state.
So, in terms of what's going on in society now, do you have some thoughts about how things have changed for better or for worse?
I guess that's a balancing act.
Okay.
Some things have changed for better, some things haven't changed. And as I was discussing the other day, here in St. Pete, I met a Caucasian female that was living out where I live, and we played pinochle together. And she said, she came from Wisconsin, and she says, look, she says, a relative tried to get me to move on the other side of Central, and she just downgraded this side of Central. She said, but since I moved out here, I'm having a ball. She said, I'm really having a ball. And these things are still happening. People don't want to accept it. People don't want to realize it. But you got a certain element of people that are not going to give in. And the main reason is, in this country, everybody wants to be what? Number one. And guess what? In order to have a number one, you've got to have a number two. There's no way you can have a number one if you don't have a number two. And back to Joyce, in our first meeting, she was from a Lutheran family. And they used to have dinners, family dinners on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other holidays. And Joyce told her mother that she was seeing me and asked me, could I come to the dinner? And her mother said, no. She said, he can't come in my house. For 3 years, she wouldn't allow me. Then she called Joyce. She said, I think I'm losing my daughter because Joyce wouldn't go without me. She said, I think I'm losing my daughter, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna allow him to come. And we went. And afterwards, when we really began to know each other, because I used to go over and take him out to lunch and stuff, you know, trying to get myself in the door good. And the mother came to me and she says, Louis, I'm sorry, I apologize, and nothing struck me like that. She said, it was not me. She said, I followed my friends and neighbors talking against African Americans, and I listened to them. She said, I had no contact with them. And I said, well, I can understand. And we were able to go on and until the day she died. When she cooked, she knew how to eat kiwi and pumpkin pie. She said, well, what kind of pie you eat? I said, cherry or sweet potato. And she would always cook me a pie and tell everybody in the family, don't touch that pie. That's Louis's pie. That's where I was at with her.
Are there ways you'd like to see things change?
Yes, yes, yes. First off, and I know it's impossible, I'd like to see the towers, Republican and Democrat, dropped. I would like to see everybody do certain things on their own merits. You know? If you're gonna run for office, don't come here and tell me about what John did and Jack did. Tell me what you're gonna do. That's what I wanna hear. I don't want people going to vote Republican, just because it's Republican. I voted for 2 Republicans in my life. And I would always vote for them, and I vote for people on their merits. I'm a veteran, service connected to C.W. Bill Young, name is on the VA hospital at Bay Pines. I voted for C.W. Bill Young every time he came up because he was a man of strength. Bob Grimm, I voted for him every time. Because these 2 people were people persons. They weren't worried about what Mary Jane said, John said. They was worried about doing things. I'm going a little long.
No, you're fine.
And I just enjoyed backing those 2 people. And Bill Young has done so much for GIs. He did so much when he was alive. Bob Grimm did so much also. And I admire those 2 people. They are above as far as people from Florida in my book. I don't think there's anybody around that can compare or compete with those 2 people.
Thank you. Would you like to say a word about how your faith has influenced your journey and your approach to life and racism?
Yes. My mother was a strong church goer. My father was not into church. The only time African Americans could play baseball was on Sundays. See? So he was generally on the road or going somewhere trying to make a living, you know. And I wanted to go, but Mama wouldn't allow me. And this is the reason I called my father a winner. She would say, you gotta go to Sunday school. I go to Sunday school, and I sneak and ask my dad. I said, Dad, can I ride with you all today and go to bed? He said, well, if you can dunk your mother coming from Sunday school, then I can say, okay. You know, he would never go against what my mother said, but if I could get around her, hey, you got it made. That's the home run, you know.
Okay.
And what can I say? My mother is my strength. That's right. And as far as this, I went to, like I said, many churches. I'm an elder in my church, and I try to be here at least one Sunday every month. And my church members know this, you know. And I'm trying to bring a little growth because churches are dying. People are not respecting the church as they used to. And last Sunday, Rev gave me some ammunition because I went back and I talked. Kids are being turned off listening at grown folks' sermons. We gotta get kids involved in the church. And she presented an incredible thing last Sunday because she asked the kids, what do you want? She got feedback from the kids. She was talking to the kids. And that's something that we haven't done in our church in over 30 years. And I think that's the beginning. I came to this church, and the one thing I liked, I went to community over there. Boy, they got people galore. I went to Bethel Community now, people galore. First Presbyterian, people galore. But when I walked in this door, I was treated like an individual. I had so many people come up to me and say, my name's such and such a thing, and this and that. And that touches you. You know, when people talk to you, they can relate. And Bob Bell, I'll never forget him. See, because I was raised up in Jordan Park. His father had a fishery, and he used to come in Jordan Park and get the guys to go help unload the trucks. Well, what happened? I didn't know him, didn't recognize him or whatever. And he came up to me and he says, yeah, man, I know Bobby, Bland, Tom, and that shocked me. Here's a Caucasian male from 1950 that can call off my classmate's name in 2025. Don't you know that's impressive? He has to have had some kind of feeling to remember those names. Hey, I can't even remember some people's names. Names that I met last year, you know. But he will always stand out in my book. And that's the feeling I got when I came here. That's the only reason I come back. Because I get that special feeling here.
We have a couple of minutes, so we wanted to ask if anybody in the congregation has something they would like to ask Louis. And you're free to say you don't want to comment. Yes, Claire.
Thank you so much for sharing. I wonder if you have any children or grandchildren, and if so, how are they coping, and what are they feeling and thinking in these days?
My son passed about 4 years ago. I have a stepson that I basically raised. He retired from the military as a major. He didn't want to go into the ROTC when he was in school, but I tried to force him. Wouldn't work. He went off to school for 3 months and met a guy. Guess what? Hey, Dad, I joined the ROTC. I said, you need to tell me, I've been feeding you all these years, and you're staying here, you wouldn't accept me, but you meet some guy in less than 3 months, and you're gonna take his way. My daughters, I have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter, she retired as she retired from USAA Insurance as an adjuster. She was an adjuster for USAA Insurance. My youngest daughter, she works for the state, and she goes around to different nursing homes, making appointments for different residents and clients. And she cries every morning because they're giving her the area up in Seminole. And when they give it to somebody else from St. Pete, they only last several months. So it always falls back on them. I said, well, they're like a squirrel. Just keep on gaining the nuts and put them in the bank. You know, that's it. I have 4 granddaughters. My oldest granddaughter gets her master's in speech therapy in April. I have triplet granddaughters. One of them finished from Florida A&M in the VET program. She came out, stayed a year. Then she got accepted to South Florida. The year she stayed out, she worked as a paramedic. She got accepted to South Florida. And when she was accepted to South Florida, she stayed 3 months. She came, they don't talk to their mother. They come to me. They let me take it to their mother. And she says, Granddaddy, I'm quitting school. She said, I'm going back to work as a paramedic. I said, how much they paying? She said, starting out, I get $75,000. She said, but I'm going back to nursing school later on. I said, well, whatever decision you make, I'm with it. I mean, that's my thing. I'm not gonna try to dictate to you what to do. Because later on you come back and say, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't forced me. I have a granddaughter. She's at FSU, one of the triplets. And in April, she gets her pre-med degree. My other granddaughter, she told me a long time ago, she said, I can't go into medicine, Granddad. She said, I'm scared of blood. So she went to FSU, and all of them had 4-point plus averages. Haven't had to pay one nickel. Everything they got was on their scholarships. They finished at St. Pete High in the IB program. She went to school for 3 years. And back to your racial question, she worked in the clerk of court's office. And she tried to get her supervisor to adjust her schedule so she could work and go to school. And the supervisor wouldn't do it for her. But she had done it for other people. So that turned her off with that. She jumped out of that, came home, started St. Pete. She said, I'm going into accounting. Lo and behold, they took all of her credits except 1 year. So this year, she was going to school and working for her. This is her second year. She gets her AA degree in accounting. And they put up a position for job for an accountant. Guess what? She applied for it and she got it. And she says she's going to USF to further her studies. I have one grandson in Miami. The guys just don't do like the girls. They don't. And I'm an example. I didn't just go to school and get out. Did my little sports thing. But he finished school, got his degree, and guess what he's doing? He's working at one of these health or fitness centers. You know, I said to myself, man, you ought to be able to get a job that's gonna pay a little more than that. He brushes me off. Well, that's his decision.
Well, our scripture was about salt and light, and we have salt and light right here before us, don't we?